On her son Jack's birthday, Meg plans a clown-themed party since Jack adores comedians. She hires a professional clown, but he cancels after the party starts. With no alternative, Meg contacts her husband Kent, a real estate agent, who in the midst of fixing up one of their properties, finds a trunk with a complete clown costume. He dons the outfit to entertain at Jack's celebration. Later, Kent takes Jack to bed and intends to talk to Meg about a surprise, but falls asleep on the sofa before she returns. The following morning, Kent wakes to Meg urging him to take Jack to school. Running late, Kent finds himself still in the clown costume and reluctantly agrees. Despite his attempts to remove the makeup, it stubbornly remains. In a rush, Kent takes Jack to school, drawing curious glances due to his attire. Arriving at one of his properties, Kent encounters workers assigned to remove the carpet. However, dressed as a clown, no one recognizes him. He introduces himself and leads the workers inside, attempting to scrub off the makeup in the bathroom, but to no avail. Frustrated, he tries to remove the wig and nose, but they remain stuck. Kent struggles to take off the costume, but it refuses to budge, causing him distress. Desperate, he grabs a blade from a drawer, intending to cut the costume, but ends up cutting his wrist deeply instead. After patching himself up, the man heads to the other workers in the room and grabs a small chainsaw, placing it close to his chest and turning it on in an attempt to cut off the costume. Despite knowing it's a risky move, he exerts all his strength to remove the suit, but all he accomplishes is damaging the saw. Frustrated, Kent abandons his efforts and returns home. Noticing her husband still dressed as a clown, Meg questions why he hasn't changed. Kent recounts his struggle, though Meg doubts his story. Taking charge, Meg uses her medical tools to help Kent, trying to extract the red ball from his nose. However, the object is so lodged that a piece of flesh tears off, causing Kent immense pain. Meanwhile, their dog consumes the clown nose. Meg realizes the wig has replaced Kent's actual hair. As Jack investigates the commotion in the bathroom, Meg attends to him, leaving Kent. With a wound on his nose, Kent goes to the hospital for treatment, receiving a bandage. Later at home, he starts feeling unusually famished. Despite eating cake and various foods, his stomach continues to rumble. The following morning, Meg discovers the kitchen in disarray, and a note from Kent, stating his intent to uncover the truth about the costume back at the place where he found it. Kent contacts the company and requests his secretary to search the records for the property's previous owner. While on the call, he notices the costume chest is chained, and decides to personally investigate the paperwork. Arriving at the office, Kent retrieves the folder and heads to a nearby cafeteria to review the documents. He discovers that the former property owner, Martin Carlson, has passed away. Pondering his next steps, Kent notices a child observing him, and his stomach growls louder despite recently eating multiple dishes. Perplexed, the clown visits a Halloween costume store, obtaining the contact details of a person sharing Martin's surname from his car. Kent dials the number, asking about the clown costume, but the person on the line seems terrified, pleading with him not to touch the costume. Surprised, Kent mentions he's already dressed, prompting an immediate invitation to the person's house, who provides the address. After a lengthy drive, Kent arrives and meets Bert Carlson, the deceased owner's brother. Introducing himself, Kent accepts Bert's offer of tea and learns a bit about the costume's origins. Bert explains that he and his brother crafted it for a failed clown. Curious, Kent inquires about removing the costume. Bert divulges some history, revealing the creature's origins with pale skin and a red nose, dwelling in icy mountains. To sustain itself, the clown would entice 5 children into its cave, consuming one every winter month across centuries. The tale, long forgotten, turned the clown into a beloved figure among children. Abruptly, Kent feels lightheaded, questioning Bert's narrative before succumbing to unconsciousness. When he awakens later, the dressmaker informs him the tea will prolong his slumber. Bert expresses intent to administer more, asserting that severing body parts is the only method to halt the demon. Desperate upon hearing this, Kent breaks free from his restraints at the last moment, only to be struck by Bert's cleaver, lodging into his shoulder. Enraged, Kent removes the blade and hurls it back at Bert, grappling with him and disarming the seamstress with a revolver. Questioning Bert's intentions, Kent learns about the costume being the demon's skin, though he doesn't comprehend the significance. Returning home, Kent divulges the events to Meg, urging her to contact the police, mentioning the wound inflicted by Bert. Anxiously, he implores Meg not to disclose his beliefs to anyone, inadvertently revealing the story to her family. Eavesdropping from the sofa, disbelieving, Meg's father demands proof. Kent reveals the wound on his shoulder and leads everyone to Bert, trapped in his car, leading the family to assume they've caught an innocent man. Misunderstanding the situation as a jest, Meg's brother attempts to remove his clown wig, prompting Kent to unintentionally fracture his arm. This frightens Meg and their son, who witness the chaos from the window. To avoid further alarming them, the man resolves to drive Bert to the police station. Midway, an alarming transformation begins, his fingers and toes elongating excessively. Recognizing the impending danger, Bert uses handcuffs to constrict Kent's neck, causing him to lose control of the car and crash into a wall. Remarkably unscathed after the accident, Kent extricates Bert from the wreckage, questioning his motives despite his injuries. The dressmaker insists that Kent must end his own life before a dire outcome ensues, then loses consciousness. In a bewildering moment, Kent perceives 2 children in a passing car, triggering intense stomach rumbles and inducing hallucinations. prompting him to flee into the nearby forest. At a nearby campsite, a boy hears the unsettling sounds and encounters Kent, who, driven by the hunger, asks for food. Being a Boy Scout, the boy offers a cookie, but as he approaches, Kent abruptly seizes the young man's arm and gruesomely bites off his fingers. The following morning, Meg pleads with the school principal to prevent Kent from picking up Jack. After her plea, she bids farewell to her son. Unfortunately, Colton and other students witness Meg kissing Jack, making the boy a target for bullies. After his first taste of human flesh, Kent notices his original teeth falling out. Realizing the danger he poses, he isolates himself in one of his houses, intending to hide. However, upon unlocking the door, he encounters a boy who initiates conversation, provoking Kent's insatiable hunger. Despite his intense cravings, Kent implores the boy to stay away, barricading himself inside while struggling to resist the overwhelming temptation. At home, Meg struggles to control the frenzied dog, which became agitated after devouring Kent's nose. Suddenly, she receives a call from her husband, who apologizes for the distressing situation. He cryptically mentions that this is the only solution and abruptly ends the call, leaving Meg more anxious. Following the call, Kent attempts to end his life with the revolver, but regains consciousness unharmed, as if nothing had occurred. Undeterred by the failed attempt, Kent heads to a construction store, purchasing saws and various materials. Meanwhile, Meg, determined to find her husband, searches through different properties where he might be hiding. As she hunts, Kent arranges a makeshift setup with two saws facing each other in a risky attempt to end his life. Despite gathering the courage to proceed, he loses balance, causing the saws to topple harmlessly. In the midst of this, the boy enters the house and is struck by a fragment of the broken blade, collapsing lifelessly. Though initially remorseful, Kent's hunger overcomes him, leading to an inexplicable meal. Unaware of her husband's actions, Meg arrives at the house, striving to gain entry. Despite Kent's protests, she insists on calming him down, revealing her pregnancy, a secret she intended to share the day he donned the costume. Moved by Meg's revelation, Kent finally relents and asks her to take him away. However, only the boy's bones remain in the basement. Realizing his transformation, Kent instructs Meg to restrain him, adamant that she must never release him under any circumstances. As events unfold, Meg apprehends her husband, presumably to ensure everyone's safety. Meg, seeking answers, delves into Bert's book and discovers a headline featuring the Carlson brothers, accompanied by a photo of Bert in a clown costume. Determined to understand how he managed to remove it, she visits the dressmaker at the hospital, where, unable to speak, Bert writes in a notebook asking about Kent's whereabouts, insisting that only Kent can aid him. Frustrated by Bert's lack of cooperation, Meg shows him the photo she found, which agitates Bert, prompting the nurse to eject her. Seeking further information, Meg heads to the house where Kent found the suit, uncovering a camera trained on a chair with handcuffs. Analyzing the recordings, she discovers unsettling footage of someone in a clown costume thrashing about wildly, accompanied by a doctor bringing in a wheelchair. Determined to investigate further, Meg decides to take the camera home. Meanwhile, Jack, distressed about his father, faces bullying at school from Colton, who intends to humiliate him with glue. In retaliation, Jack bites Colton's hand and rushes home before the scheduled time. Upon arriving, Jack searches for his mother and descends into the basement upon hearing a familiar voice, unaware that the restrained figure is no longer his father. At the Carlson house, Meg continues reviewing footage of the clown-like figure's erratic behavior and a doctor's involvement. However, her focus shifts when she receives a call from a friend who was meant to collect Jack from school. Worried that Jack might end up in the basement, she hurries home to find him safe in the living room. Still anxious, she questions Jack about leaving school and his father's whereabouts. Meanwhile, far from Meg's home, Colton plays video games and notices an unexpected presence behind him. Alarmed by this intruder while believing himself alone, he warns his friends and prepares to defend himself with nunchakus in search of the unknown visitor. Colton encounters Kent, momentarily confused and inquiring about Jack's whereabouts. As the clown approaches, one of Colton's friends on the call discusses Colton's intended use of the glue, confirming his intentions to harm Jack the next day. Reacting to the unsettling revelation, the hooded clown lunges at Colton, viciously devouring him and flinging his heart at the television. Meanwhile, at home, Meg prepares to depart with her son when she discovers her dog, now as possessed as Kent, has escaped and is charging towards her. Just as the dog is about to attack, Bert intervenes, sacrificing himself to save Meg. Witnessing her beloved pet's demise, Meg falls into shock, requiring Bert's reassurance to ask about Kent's whereabouts. As Meg regains composure, Bert, calmer, begins to pull out his teeth while revealing the truth about the suit. He stumbled upon it accidentally in his store, delivered from Iceland in impeccable condition, surpassing any other merchandise. Initially, Bert sold it to a circus, intending to spread joy as a clown at the hospital where his brother worked. However, his transformation commenced, and Martin, his possessed brother, vowed to seek a cure. After the promise, Bert blacked out, awakening days later free from the costume and the curse. Martin, while possessed, had given 5 sick children to the devil, one for each month of the Icelandic winter. Once achieving his goal, the demon released Bert from the costume and allowed him to live. In subsequent years, Bert sought a way to break the curse while Martin safeguarded the costume until the end. After learning the story, Meg doubts Kent's capability to commit such atrocities. Bert, to prevent further incidents, shows Meg the Boy Scout's severed fingers and asks for Kent's whereabouts. Just then, Jack arrives, revealing that Kent went to Colton's. Meg, taking Jack to her father's house, hastily drives off without offering further explanation. Arriving at Colton's home, they find Kent's partially devoured body but no sign of him. Recollecting a Chuck E. Cheese's nearby, Meg decides to search there, leaving Bert in the car with the promise to return with her husband. At the restaurant, a boy enters the play area to locate his younger brother. As he explores the tunnels, he discovers a blood-covered stretch with handprints, yet remains undaunted, continuing the search. Following the trail of blood, he encounters Kent, fully possessed, attempting to devour his brother. The elder sibling intervenes, distracting the clown so his brother can flee, tragically becoming the victim himself. The ensuing chaos alerts other families, prompting panic among the patrons. Meanwhile, Meg, still on the hunt for her husband, is pulled into the kitchen by Bert, who guides her to Kent's location. Confused, Kent is confronted by Meg, who tries to reason with him. In a frenzied attempt, Bert attacks Kent with an axe, triggering Kent's possessed state. Kent almost overpowers Bert but relents at Meg's plea, giving her a chance. The demon reveals there's only one child left, demanding a sacrifice. The situation escalates when the police arrive, prompting Meg to leave the restaurant, abandoning Bert to be captured as the prime suspect. Outside, Meg contacts her father, urging him to escape with Jack. As his father inquires about the situation, a woman notices a lost child and ends the call to assist him. Just as she gathers clothes for the boy, his mother arrives, embracing him. Feeling uncertain, Meg heads to her car and tunes into the radio. A girl knocks on her window seeking a ride. Seizing the opportunity, Meg agrees and drives off. Taking advantage of the girl's slumber, Meg takes her to the designated place. Upon arrival, Meg wakes the girl, requesting her to leave the car. Frightened, the girl pleads to enter, banging on the window. Meg, now regretting her actions, is interrupted by a policeman. Confused, she wonders why the demon hasn't appeared, assuming it's gone after Jack. Driving back to town, she tries calling her father, presuming he's gone home. Rushing across the city, Meg meets her father and begins explaining the situation. As they converse, the clown suddenly appears, swiftly killing her father. Witnessing her father's demise, Meg grabs a sledgehammer in self-defense, anticipating the demon's arrival. Signaling Jack to retreat, Meg prepares for the impending danger. After the boy departs, a massive beast appears, enduring a blow from a sledgehammer. Despite this, the hooded clown disarms Meg, trapping her leg against the car. Exploiting her inability to escape, the clown attempts to extract the baby from her belly. Amidst the chaos, Meg urges Jack to flee. As Jack seeks refuge under the stairs, the clown hunts him, prompting Meg to pursue with a knife. Though she slashes the demon's neck, it's not enough. The clown inflicts a severe wound on Meg's shoulder, rendering her unconscious. The demon searches for Jack, finding his hiding spot. However, the cramped space causes the demon to move away, momentarily tricking Jack. Seizing the opportunity, the demon blocks the exit with bricks and destroys the ladder, attempting to capture Jack from above. Meg awakens just in time, securing a chain around the demon's neck, weakening it. Preparing for a final strike, Meg hesitates when Kent's voice pleads for help from inside the demon. Attempting to save Kent, Meg asks Jack to take a book and chains, but he refuses, realizing it's not his father. The demon attacks once more, prompting Meg to deliver a powerful blow with the sledgehammer, causing colored blood to gush as the demon's head detaches. Relieved, Meg embraces her son, apologizing. However, the demon grabs Jack's leg. In a desperate move to save him, Meg tears out the last nerve endings, causing the clown's body to dissolve, leaving only Kent's head and costume. The police investigate, collecting Kent's belongings, including the suit, as evidence, concluding a series of heinous crimes.